34-year-old Katie Meyler is a well-known figure in West Point, one of the poorest slums in Monrovia.
How do baby do it?
With a freckled face, strawberry blonde hair, combat boots, and a dress, she cuts an unlikely profile.
Tell Lucy and Susan I said hello.
But Meyler feels right at home here, and there's no greater proof of that than her decision to remain here during the Ebola epidemic that ravaged the city 2 years ago. The virus took thousands of lives. Most outsiders who weren't medical personnel were evacuated, including journalists. Meyler filled that void with regular social media posts and interviews.
I'd rather die at 30 years old or 32 years old, living for what I really believe, and from head to toe in every single way possible, than to live to be 90 years old and not, and not really fulfill what I was born to do. No, Benu is actually #1 in her class.
For the past 11 years, Meyler has made young women like Benu her cause. She's the founder of the More Than Me Academy, a private school which provides free education for kindergarten through 6th grade girls and then scholarships for them to go on to high school. Most of the girls come from large families and never would have gotten an education because they've been forced to work on the streets selling things to support their families.
I started More Than Me because I had a passion to, I had a passion for human rights for kids. I had a passion for poor kids, realizing that, yes, they want to go to school because they don't want to work. And if they're girls and they're on the streets and they're vulnerable, oftentimes they're sexually exploited.
Meyler says the extreme poverty in Liberia leads to particularly insidious behaviors.
How bad when you're trying just every single day to get a cup of rice to stay alive. I've seen and heard and know of mothers that have ended up prostituting their own children just to survive. And it sounds horrific to anybody on the outside. Of course, how could a mother do that? But how could a mother let her daughter die too?
Meyler's passion for social justice began more than 20 years ago as a teenager in suburban New Jersey, where she was raised by a single mother. Often the family was dysfunctional, she says. Often they had to go on welfare. Meyler says she found solace at her church.
It felt good to help others, and it helped me get out of my own, things that were going on in my life. So I got addicted to really making other people happy.
She went on to graduate from college, the first in her family to do so, and took a paid internship with the charity Samaritan's Purse, which assigned her to Liberia.
I didn't know where Liberia was on a map, and I Googled it.
So it was meant to be for 6 months?
Yes.
It's been 11 years. What happened?
There's a saying that nobody chooses Liberia, that Liberia chooses you. I think part of it is like you come here and you see the amount of need the place has, and the people are very warm and open, and you can make a big difference here.
Both during and following her internship, Meyler met many children who weren't in school. In fact, 10 years ago, more than half of all primary school-age children did not attend.
What?
So Meyler began raising money, at first mostly through her church, for scholarships. But she quickly became disenchanted with the existing schools.
They're not really learning anything at school because the teachers don't come on time. Even, both in public and private schools, it's very rare that teachers show up and they're accountable.
Yes. Meyler decided she had to start her own school, so she raised money from both small and large donors in the United States, purchased a building, and hired teachers. The school provides breakfast and lunch, medical services, and after-school programs. There's a strong emphasis on empowering girls to stand up against sexual abuse. The school can accommodate 180 students. Hundreds more wish they could attend.
She sells popcorn during the day.
We met one of them on our trip to West Point.
So she stopped in 3rd grade from going to school because her family don't have any money.
What can you do for a child like this?
So unfortunately, our school only has 180 spots. And so, and it's at this point, we don't have any space.
And her students are still playing catch up. All schools were closed for an entire year after Ebola struck. West Point, where most of the More Than Me students lived, was ground zero for the crisis. Residents were quarantined inside, and most Westerners left. Meyler admits she was fearful.
What defines you the most is what you do despite your fear. And so I was extremely afraid. I signed my power of attorney away, before I left, just in case something happened. There was a real legitimate concern that I might not return home.
After she bribed her way into the quarantined West Point, she was shocked to find virtually no health services or equipment. She quickly raised money to buy ambulances and medical supplies and turned her school into a disaster response center.
Our plan was do everything you can to keep everybody alive, and then when you can't do anything else, bring dignity in death. So we did a lot of that too, is like singing to people, praying with people while they died. Children that were dying outside, some of them were like just laying outside of the overflow center. The ones inside were actually worse off because they were dead mixed with the living, all there. They could barely move, barely could speak.
How do you ever recover from that?
Well, I mean, I hope it's like, I don't want to ever get over this because we have to do something to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that remembering and feeling what it felt like and to see that national emergency, it motivates me and fuels me to fight to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Meyler believes one of the main contributors to the Ebola crisis was the lack of education, so she approached the Minister of Education, George Werner, and asked him to consider partnering with private groups to overhaul the public schools.
How are you?
A pilot project began this fall using 7 different organizations to revamp 94 schools. More Than Me was put in charge of 6 of those schools. We met with Meyler at a back-to-school celebration in the rural village of Bog Bay.
Most of the parents and the community members here don't read or write and didn't have basic education. So they're really excited that out of 2,750 public schools in the country that really aren't functioning, barely functioning, if functioning at all, that their school was selected among a few. And you will let it drip until all the paint finish.
Meyler and her staff have helped oversee school repairs, the development of new curricula, and installation of teacher trainers at each of the 6 schools.
Freshen up any of the whites.
The attention she earned during the Ebola crisis, including being named a Time magazine Person of the Year, has opened the doors to philanthropists.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Meyler hopes to raise $25 million over the next 5 years to expand to 500 schools. But ultimately, she hopes the partnership project is so successful that the private partners can relinquish their roles.
Our goal here is to go out of business. I mean, I can tell you for us, we're successful when we're not needed anymore. We're successful when Liberia's government can run these schools and that the teachers are at capacity, and Liberia doesn't need to have all these the external support. And that's what we're working towards.
She may wish to go out of business in a more prosperous future Liberia.
Hello.
As for her own future personally, Meyler says she has no plans to leave her adopted country. For Religion and Ethics News Weekly, I'm Fred de Sam Lazaro in Monrovia, Liberia.